Your IEEE membership means access to insurance products featuring exclusive group rates, flexible benefit options, and portable coverage that stays with you throughout your career. Engineered to help protect your loved ones and your financial security. For more information, go to IEEEinsurance.com.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our IEEE USA webinar, Engineering Your Retirement, Step-by-Step Guide to Navigating the 10 Years Before You Retire. I'm your host, Jonathan Cho. Today's webinar is proudly sponsored by the IEEE Member Group Insurance Program, powered by AMBA. Please note that this webinar is not affiliated with or endorsed by our sponsor. Joining us today is IEEE member and former engineer turned financial advisor, David Sandhu, who returns to us with another excellent guide to help our viewers prepare for retirement. David previously worked as an engineer for SpaceX, Raytheon, and Lockheed Martin before transitioning to the financial services industry. After his father passed away, David helped his mother navigate some tough financial questions, which sparked his interest in pursuing a career in financial planning. David is passionate about helping others and lives by Zig Ziglar's famous saying, "You can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want." He knows firsthand that true happiness is experienced when helping others. Without further ado, I will now pass it off to our presenter. Welcome back, David. We're very excited for what you have in store for our audience today.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thank you to IEEE USA for hosting some amazing workshops. I'm excited to present today on Engineering Your Retirement, a step-by-step guide to preparing for the transition. If you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. I would love to engage, and I'm also going to be putting a link in the chat box, or Jonathan can, for the Engineering Your Retirement Toolkit. And so when you download the toolkit, you'll get a copy of the presentation slides for today. You also get about maybe four or five guides, and then a link to, I think, 2 or 3 upcoming workshops that we're doing. We're constantly trying to educate other members, and so definitely take advantage of that as a resource if you're interested in learning more about financial education and retirement planning. So without further ado, I'm going to start us off with a question. Have you ever asked yourself, how will I know when I'm ready to retire? If you've ever asked yourself that question, maybe just put a thumbs up or a yes in the chat box. I would love to know, have you ever asked yourself, how will I know when I'm ready to retire? So if you're in the chat box, you can just type a thumbs up. Would love to know if you have ever thought this question, how will I know when I'm ready to retire? And that is going to be the underlying current behind today's presentation. That's the kind of the question that's going to underpin a lot of the questions that people have as they navigate retirement planning. So, quick disclosure, anything we discuss is not meant to be taken as specific tax, financial, or legal advice. Everything we discuss is meant to be general information and educational in nature. As well, this workshop is not affiliated, sponsored, or endorsed by IEEE USA or IEEE as well. Okay, so again, I mentioned this before. In case you missed it, or in case you just hopped on a couple minutes late, feel free to download the Engineering Your Retirement Toolkit. It has the Engineering Your Retirement slides, the slides from today's workshop, important numbers, milestones, dates, and then a couple of other guides. What issues should I consider before I retire? And then another checklist, taxation guide to withdrawals and income sources. Definitely going to be a good resource as you're navigating these last 5 to 10 years out from retirement. So with that, the purpose of today's workshop, and by the end of the webinar, my hope for you is that you understand the need for a retirement plan. You know your greatest risks in retirement planning, and we're going to talk about the 5 greatest retirement risks. You want to identify the 5 key retirement planning areas, and you want to maybe begin developing a retirement readiness checklist, know the key milestones on your retirement journey, and then finally understand how to develop your own retirement plan. So if that sounds like you, then you are in the right place. A little bit about me. As Jonathan mentioned, I'm a former electrical engineer. I used to work at Raytheon, SpaceX, Lockheed Martin, Bell Helicopters, L3 Harris, a number of space startups in the aerospace industry. So very excited again to be coming back to IEEE USA and presenting this, I think, very, very critical and important information. The bottom right picture of me is actually a picture of my wife and I on family day at Lockheed Martin. So really enjoyed the culture there that I got to experience. Again, former electrical engineer. I created the Financial Freedom Blueprint about 15 years ago, and that allowed my wife and I to pay off about $100,000 of college student loan debt. to save up an emergency fund of 1 year, to give over $150,000 in charitable donations. Giving is a big part of our money story and our money journey. And shout out for this upcoming Giving Tuesday. So definitely, if you're charitably inclined, I'll talk some more. I'll talk more about how to do that more tax efficiently. And then finally, we paid off the mortgage on our home. And so, if you're new to maybe this presentation or you missed last month's, I want to share my story because, as Jonathan mentioned, I had some transitions happen in my life. So about 15 years ago, I took my parents on a cruise, and I asked my father. I said, "Hey, Dad, do you have any investment or retirement accounts?" And he started laughing, and he said, "Yeah, David, I've got 5 investment accounts that I've been putting money into over the years." And then he started laughing, and it didn't really hit me for a couple of minutes, but then I realized I'm one of 5 kids. And so he wasn't putting any money into traditional retirement accounts, he was putting money into us. But unfortunately, he never got to experience the return on his investment. As Jonathan mentioned, my father passed away about 10 years ago. And really going through that experience really is what inevitably put the spark in me to start helping other people with their finances. But I started walking my mom through her own tough financial planning questions, right? A lot of questions that you might have today geared towards retirement planning. And that's what really put the spark in me to start helping other people with their finances. And so I was actually working at Lockheed Martin. I went part-time there and started teaching financial education classes just here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and in my community. And then during COVID, I started opening up to do more webinars. And so that's really what brings us to today, which is Engineering Your Retirement, a step-by-step guide to preparing for the transition. So I've got a lot of slides to cover, and I definitely want to make sure that if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. So I want you to meet a very fictitious couple, but also a very real couple. So Jack and Jill is very representative of a similar couple that came to my workshop a few months back. And this was their story. So Jack and Jill, they were retiring in the next 5 years. Jack and Jill were 4 years apart. They had 2 children and 3 grandchildren. They both had saved about $750,000 for retirement. They had no debt, including their mortgage. They had paid it off. Jack had a pension, and the last thing of note was Jill's parents were both active and in their 80s. And so after we had started discussing some of their issues, they had a list of questions, right? So these were the top 7 questions, and these are actually probably the top 7 questions that I get during when people request to have a scheduled one-on-one with me. These are the top 7 questions, and I would like you to put in the chat box which one of these questions resonates more with you, or if it's E, all of the above, then you can type that in the chat box too. But so the first question Jack and Jill had was, are we going to run out of money in retirement? Number 2, what would happen if one of us needs long-term care? Number 3, will I still be able to live comfortably in retirement? Number 4, will taxes eat away at our nest egg? Number 5, what will happen to Jill if I die before her? Because obviously he was concerned about predeceasing his spouse. What if the stock market drops before I retire? When should we file for Social Security? So again, these are the top 7 questions, and I see a lot of people commenting. JMT290 said number 3. Carl said number 6. Bill said, when should I collect Social Security? So yeah, which one of these is more of an issue for you, or which one are you more concerned about? Daryl, he said number 7. When should we file for Social Security? Ron said 1. Har said 1. Yeah, so a lot of people have similar questions that Jack and Jill did. And so the goal for today is, as we navigate this workshop, to help you navigate some of these questions as well. So the agenda for today, we're going to talk about the 5 greatest retirement risks, the 4 tax buckets, the 3 questions every pre-retiree needs to answer, the 2 product categories, your 1 ideal retirement, and then I'm going to take you through a framework for engineering your retirement blueprint. And a lot of people, Thomas said number 6, Ara said number 1 and 3, Munir said 3, 4, and 6. Yeah, so I appreciate your comments here. Thanks for dropping them in the chat box. So let's start off with the 5 retirement risks, okay? So I'm going to go through each one of these pretty quickly, but I want you to jot them down and think through which of these risks is more applicable to you, because some of these risks may not be as applicable, and some of them might be more applicable to you. So let's go through the first one. So let me ask you a question, true or false? And you can type this in the chat box. Type T for true or F for false. People are living longer than they used to. Would you say this is a true or false statement? Type T for true in the chat box, or type F for false if you think this is a true or false statement. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of T's here in the chat box. So yeah, I think everybody is on the same mindset that I am. People are living a lot longer than they used to. The Society of Actuaries actually talks about this, and they say this is a big issue, right? So 1 out of 3 males and 1 out of 2 females who are in their 50s will live to well into their 90s. So the big question, and this is the question that the Society of Actuaries came out with, is basically, will your retirement income plan be enough? Longevity and inflation are kind of the opposite sides of the same coin. Okay, so as you age, things get more expensive. They also mentioned that the Bureau, this is from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the inflation rate for seniors is higher than the average consumer in two areas. I'm not sure if you can see this clearly, but there's the yellow bars and the blue bars. The blue bars, that's the inflation rate for essentially everybody in the world, or everybody here in the US, and then the yellow bars is the inflation rate for seniors, so the people getting ready to retire or in retirement. And as you can see, medical care and shelter are weighted higher in those two categories for people that are seniors, because a lot of times medical care gets more expensive in retirement, and also housing. And the reason for that is people will tend to either renovate their house to become more accessible for them, or they will transition into a facility, maybe like a skilled nursing care facility or a long-term care facility. So housing and medical care are rated higher from a longevity and inflation perspective. Of course, we've seen inflation spike. I think back in, during the pandemic and after the pandemic, we saw it spike up to 9%. Average is kind of around 3 to 4%. But your personal rate of inflation is going to be different than the general population. So it's important to understand what your personal rate of inflation is as well. And if you're married, definitely consider that there's a higher percentage that if you're the man or the wife, depending, the odds a wife outlives her husband by 5, 10, and 15 years is higher than the opposite. Okay, so it's more probable that women will live longer than men. And so especially if you're thinking about a combined retirement timeline, start thinking through, how will I be affected if my spouse pass away, or how will my spouse be affected if I pass away? And especially if you are thinking through this as a married couple, you need to start navigating a combined retirement planning. And again, this is from the Society of Actuaries, great resource from their website. Okay, second question, true or false? The stock market always goes up in value every single year. So the stock market goes up in value every single year. Is this true or is this false? Let's see kind of where people are thinking here. And I see a couple of people commenting, how do I get the toolkit? So if you go to the link, you can download the toolkit. And after you put your information in, you'll get an email. So expect an email to receive the Engineering Your Retirement Toolkit. Okay, so yeah, we see a lot of a couple of people saying, "I wish" here. So I think, yeah, you have to be mindful that while we see trends in the stock market, that they trend upwards. It's not always true that the stock market goes up in value every single year, right? You have to challenge the assumption that I hear a lot of people will be talking about, and there's three specific assumptions that we have to challenge when it comes to stock market volatility. The first one is that the average is never the same as the real rate of return in the market whenever there's a negative number in the mix. So let me go through a quick example. I know we got a lot of engineers on here, so let me go through a very, very basic example here. So let's say you had an account that experienced a plus 10% return in 1 year and then a negative 10% return in year 2. Okay, and then let's say that it did this for 5 years up and then 5 years down. So it went up 10, then down 10, then up 10, then down 10. What would be the average return in this portfolio? Let's say it went up 10, then down 10, then up 10, then down 10, and it did this pattern over 10 years. Does anybody know what the average return in this portfolio would be? You can drop it in the chat box if you want to take a guess or a smack at this. Yes, Ramesh got it. It's 0%. The average rate of return would be 0%, but the real rate of return, the actual return that you would experience inside of your portfolio, would be a negative 4.9%. Okay, so again, the average rate of return is 0%. The real rate of return would be a negative 4.9%. Let me go through the numbers here. So let's say you had $1,000 and it went up, then down, then up, then down, then up, then down. As you can see, after 10 years, your balance is not the same $1,000. It's actually a negative 4.9%. It's 951. And again, that is because the average return is never the same as the real rate of return anytime there's a negative number in the mix. And it's important. I'm harping on this because a lot of people will just say, "Oh, I'm gonna expect an 7, 8, 9, whatever percent return, and I'm gonna average that in the market, and then I should be able to take out 4%, and I should not run out of money." And they're neglecting the sequence of returns, which means the order that the returns come in. That matters, especially in the distribution phase. So what got you here in the accumulation phase of investing is going to be different to what's going to get you through into the preservation and distribution phase of retirement. Quick example here on the sequence of returns. So Dave on the left and Ann on the right, Dave retires in 98 during a bull market and retires in 2000 at the start of a bear market. They both have $500,000 and they both take out $30,000 withdrawals every single year. Now, as you can see, Dave has a really, really good first couple of good sequence of returns years. Okay, then Ann experiences a negative sequence of returns in those first couple of years. But the reality is, if you experience a negative sequence of returns in those first couple of years and you don't change anything, and as you can see, Ann, essentially ran out of money in 2013. Now, I get it. Nobody just runs out of money in retirement, right? Every good engineer has an Excel spreadsheet, and we're looking, 10, 15, 20 years into the future. And so the point of this is not to scare anybody. It's just to say, obviously, you would have to make an adjustment if you experience a negative sequence of returns. So you might have to go back and get another job. You might have to work a different job, work part-time, change your lifestyle habits, change your spending, right? So the sequence of returns matters a lot more in the distribution phase of retirement than the accumulation phase of investing. And let me go through another example just to hammer this home. So before retirement, the average return that you get matters a lot more than the sequence. And so as you can see in three different portfolios here, portfolio A, B, and C, they all experience the same return, just in a different order. And they all start with 1 million and end up with 5.4 million. But the order of returns matters a lot more. The sequence matters a lot more when you're withdrawing assets. Now you can see portfolio A, B, and C, they have the same returns, just in a different order. And as you can see, portfolio C runs out of money in retirement. So the longevity of your portfolio is, a lot of that is going to be due to the sequence of the returns that you get in your portfolio. The last risk with the stock market is that larger losses require larger gains. So I hear a lot of people say, oh, my portfolio went down 30%, but then it went back up 30%. Well, that's not how percentages work in terms of like, oh, I broke even. If you have a negative 30% loss, you need a positive 43% to overcome that gain. So a larger losses require larger gains than the loss to overcome that loss. So it's very, very critical you understand the sequence of returns and the phase of investing you're in, which means, are you in the accumulation phase of investing? Are you in the critical 15? That's the 10 years before you retire up until the first 5 years after you retire. Or are you in the distribution phase? Actually, you can just type in the chat box. Are you more than 10 years out from retirement? If so, type in A or accumulation in the chat box. If you're within the critical 15, that's 10 years before you retire up until the first 5 years after, type in C15 or something. And then if you're in the distribution phase of investing, that means you're using your portfolio to generate income, type in D into the chat box. So again, A for accumulation, C15 for the critical 15, and then D for distribution. So yeah, a lot of people, someone said, Dale said 8 months into retirement. A lot of people are saying C15. So this is the critical 15. This is the time I really believe that you cannot afford to make a mistake. So it's very, very critical that you plan correctly during these times. Okay, third issue here, true or false? Healthcare costs are going down. Is this true or false? Would you say this is a true or false statement? Healthcare costs are going down. Type in T if you think this is true. Type in F if you think this is false. Let's see where people are thinking here. I see a lot of Fs. Yep, I don't see any trues. Okay, so yeah, I think I am in agreement with the majority here. I think healthcare costs are going up. And actually, when we look at the data, the Society of Actuaries, they say the rate of medical inflation over the past 20 years has been nearly double the rate of overall inflation. So as you age, you are more likely to spend more for healthcare. So this is a very, very big concern as people are planning for a 20 or 30-year time horizon for retirement. According to Fidelity, they say about an average retired couple age 65 needs about $315,000 saved after taxes in order to cover healthcare expenses in retirement. So this is a big, big concern. And this does not even include dental care and long-term care. And this is what the Society of Actuaries calls some big shocks in retirement. So keep in mind how this will affect you, the healthcare costs in retirement. And then from a long-term care perspective, someone turning age 65 today has almost a 70% chance of needing some type of long-term care services and support in their remaining years. And keep in mind, Medicare covers medical issues. Medicare does not cover and does not pay for long-term care issues. So if Medicare says, oh, you cannot do 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living, this is a long-term care issue, not a medical issue, okay? Okay, true or false? I will always be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. True or false? I will always be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. Type T for true if you think the statement is true. Type F for false if you think the statement is false. I will always be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. So let's see where people are thinking. Ron said false. Daryl said false. Yeah, I see a lot of falses here. Someone said it depends. That is true. It might depend. So yeah, I see a lot of falses, and yet at the same time, as people are saying, I've always been a lower tax bracket in retirement is potentially a false statement. What I see people doing is pushing a lot of funds into pre-retirement accounts, pre-tax accounts, which would indicate that they think they will be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. So taxes are a big issue. Let's talk about taxes and regulation. So the first piece of regulation that we're going to talk about is Social Security. Social Security Administration has come out and said, basically in the year 2034, the trust fund is going to run out of money, which means they're going to be able to pay about 80% of the stated benefit on your Social Security statements. Now, unless there's some big change or act of Congress or something happens with the Social Security spending, they might have to make some changes, like pushing the full retirement age out, or decreasing the COLA or something. They might have to do something. But regulation is definitely something we're keeping an eye on. Another piece of regulation is the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and the Secure Act. So the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 updated the tax brackets in 2017, and they're going to get updated again starting in 2026. Now, with the new administration, we might see those continue on as they were under the under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act rates. The other big piece of legislation was the elimination of the stretch IRA. So that basically means if I inherited an IRA, I used to be able to stretch that IRA over the distributions over my lifetime. The government says you can no longer do that. You have to take it out over a 10-year period. Any guesses on why? You can type it in the chat box. And then finally, the RMD age, it's going to get pushed. It got pushed to 73, and then it's going to get pushed again to 75. And so keep in mind how this regulation and tax brackets will affect you. Okay. So as we've seen, top federal tax rates. Now, I'm not showing this to scare you. This is top federal tax rates, right? Your effective tax rate is going to be a lot lower. It might be 15, 20, 23%, but I'm just showing you top federal tax rates. We've seen that over time, though, in practice, federal tax rates do trend upwards. Okay. And yes, a lot of people are commenting more taxes to pay. That generates tax revenue. Daryl said they want more money. Yeah. So we see that in the chat box here. That is correct. This generates more income for the government. So how do income and taxes affect you? Well, there's 6 main areas that I see, and especially with my clients. There's income taxes, capital gains, Medicare premiums, RMDs, taxation of Social Security, and estate taxes. So the first one I think most people are familiar with. We all get taxed based on our federal income tax bracket, okay? So we are all in a federal income tax bracket depending on how much income you make, and it's based on whether we file single or married filing jointly. The second way is through long-term capital gains. So let's say you have a piece of appreciated stock or appreciated real estate and you sell it. Well, whatever the profit is, that's going to be subject to, as long as you've held it for a year or more, that's going to be subject to long-term capital gains brackets. And again, it's based on your income. And there's different rates, either 0, 15, or 20%, based on if you're single, married filing jointly, or if it's in an estate or a trust. Okay, so that's the second way. The third is through Medicare IRMA. Now, IRMA stands for Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. And your income-related monthly adjustment amount for Medicare premiums for Part B and Part D are based on your income 2 years prior. That's why this chart says your 2022 modified adjusted gross income was. That's because once your income jumps over, even just by $1, it's not marginal. So if you just get into that one next bracket, it's not like you pay a marginal rate. If you just get pushed into that full bracket, you will pay the higher premium. Now, a lot of people will assume, well, I'll be in the lowest one. But keep in mind, maybe you have Social Security, pension, disability, whatever that is, whatever the income is. And then you have RMDs, which is what we're talking about next. Then you have an influx of cash, and this can push you over income limits. RMDs are another way that we experience taxes. So again, when you turn 73 or 75, depending on the year you were born, the government says basically, happy birthday. You are forced to take money out of your retirement accounts, like a 401k or an IRA, and you have to take money out of that account. And that's, again, it's going to force an influx of cash into your ordinary income, which could potentially increase your taxation. The other way that we experience taxes is through Social Security taxation. Now, a lot of people assume that, well, I already pay taxes, right, on Social Security. Well, if you make too much money, which in at least right now, it's capped at $44,000. So if you make more than $44,000, up to 85% of your Social Security can be taxed. And the way that the government uses a calculation is what's based on called provisional income. Provisional income is your gross income plus non-taxable interest plus half of your Social Security benefit. And if that number is over any one of these thresholds, then a portion of your Social Security will be subject to taxes. Okay, so that's the fifth way. The final way is the estate or death tax. Okay, now there's the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act rates right now. This exemption is put at 13.6 million. in 2026, it's supposed to get pushed back down to 6.8 million. So this is the cumulative value of your estate on the day you die. So this would be your portfolios, your 401ks, your IRAs, your land, your property, your life insurance, anything that would count against your estate. So those are the big ways that taxes affect us. Okay, another question here, true or false? As long as I have a hefty 401k, I'm ready for retirement. True or false? As long as I have a hefty 401k, I am ready for retirement. Type in T if you think this is true. Type in F if you think this is false. And I see Thomas is asking a question. Can we access the slides? Yes. I put a link to this in the chat box, and I think Jonathan can put it up again. If you go to the website and put your name in, and again, I think Jonathan can put the link in there, you will get access to the slides. You'll get access to, I think, 4 or 5 retirement reference guides, and then upcoming webinars. Okay. All right, let's see. Yeah, a lot of falses here, and I think I agree with that. Okay, so a lot of people assume that if I have a big 401k, so I'm ready for retirement. Well, the reason why I'm talking about this is because there's actually a famous quote. Maybe someone can remind me who said this, but everybody thinks they have a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Okay, does anybody know who said that? You can type it in the chat box. Everyone thinks they have a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because some of you might own stuff, but you have no idea what you own, okay? Some of you might have too many accounts. Maybe you're not consolidated. Maybe you don't know if you're on track to reach your retirement goals. Maybe you have too much cash. Maybe you have too much at risk, right? There's a lot of questions that a retirement plan should answer. Yeah, Mike Tyson, thank you. Thanks. I see all the people commenting. So a lot of questions that a retirement plan should answer is, do we have enough saved? When should we file for Social Security? Which retirement account should I pull from first? Will we run out of money in retirement? What taxes will I have to pay? What happens if I get sick? Should we be doing something differently to plan? How much of my plan? How much should my plan change if one of us passes away? That's for married couples. Should I change the way I'm investing my money as I think about retirement planning? What type of advisors should I be reaching out to? There's a lot of questions that a plan answers, really planning for the what ifs. And as people are commenting, yeah, Mike Tyson said, everyone thinks they have a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And in retirement, a lot of people get quote unquote punched in the mouth by one of these what if scenarios, which is, the stock market dropped and they weren't ready, or taxes went up, but they weren't ready, maybe because of RMDs or whatever, or Social Security maybe wasn't all there that they thought and they weren't ready and prepared, or they lived till 90 or 95. So longevity and inflation came back to bite them, or there was a healthcare or long-term care risk that came back up. And so again, a retirement plan is really the plan that's going to help you answer and give you confidence to what if scenarios. Okay. So now we've talked about the 5 greatest retirement risks. Let's talk about the 4 tax buckets. Okay. So now let's talk about the 4 tax buckets on what I call the tax continuum. So there's 4 tax buckets that I utilize at least in my thinking, in my practice. The first one is taxable accounts. The second one is tax deferred accounts. So this is like 401ks, IRAs, things like the 403bs, 457s. The third bucket is income tax free, but is state taxable. So this is things like Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, things like that. And then you have income tax free and estate tax free. And I'm not going to talk much about the 4th bucket, but this is essentially you fill up tax bucket number 4 with stuff from tax bucket number 3 to create tax bucket number 4. But at least for the first 3, tax bucket number 1, 2, and 3, let me ask you a question. Where do you think most people's retirement account is right now? In tax bucket number 2 or tax bucket number 3? So do you think the majority of people planning for retirement right now have the majority of their assets in tax bucket number 2, tax deferred accounts like 401ks, IRAs, or tax bucket number 3 like Roth 401ks and Roth IRAs? So I see a lot of 2s people commenting in the chat box here. Jim said 2, Daryl said 2, Ed said 2, Richard said 2. Yeah, a couple of 3s in there, but the majority of 2s. I see a lot of people typing 2s in here. So yeah, and that's true. I see a lot of people, especially a lot of people that have saved for the last 20 or 30 years. And this, unfortunately, right, we kind of hear this for the last 20 or 30 years, people saying, oh yeah, just defer. I hear this from a lot of financial advisors and accounting professionals say, just defer your taxes because you'll for sure be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. And yet, and this is kind of the opposite. So you might remember a few minutes ago, a lot of people were saying that the sentiment, I'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, was false. And yet, as we can see, a lot of people are saying they've got a lot of money in tax bucket number 2. So there's a conundrum here that we have to work through. So tax bucket number 1, this is a taxable bucket that represents, your taxable income, interest from CDs, dividends, reinvested dividends. Tax bucket number 2, this is tax deferred. So money you have not paid taxes on, but you will in the future. Tax bucket number 3, this is income tax free and estate taxable. So this is Roth IRAs, muni bonds, appreciation of capital assets held until death, and then life insurance, some life insurance if it's properly structured. And then tax bucket number 4 is essentially funding tax bucket number 4 with assets from tax bucket number 3, usually like in an ILET or charitable trust. And again, I'm not saying you should go out and do any of this. I'm just explaining kind of the concepts behind the 4 tax buckets. Now, again, on the tax continuum, and I think everybody commented that majority of people's assets are in tax bucket number 2. How can we move money between the tax buckets, okay? Well, to move money from tax bucket number 1 to 2, that's what's just called a contribution. So you can contribute your money from your earned income from tax bucket number 1 to tax bucket number 2. This is a contribution. You make a 401k contribution as an example. You can also make a Roth contribution. So that moves money from tax bucket number 1 to tax bucket number 3. You could do a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k contribution. You could also do a 401k to IRA rollover. That's where you keep it in the same type of bucket, just in a different type of an account. So you can move money from a 401k to an IRA rollover. So that's tax deferred to tax deferred. That's a rollover again. You could also do tax bucket number 3 to tax bucket number 3. That's a Roth 401k to a Roth IRA rollover. That's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. A lot of people do that when they retire. Then you can also do what's called a Roth conversion. Now, this is where you take money that you have not paid taxes on in a tax deferred account and you convert it into a tax-free bucket. Now, you pay the taxes when you do the conversion, but some people are considering, how and when to do this when they retire, or maybe potentially before tax rates rise. So again, I am not saying anyone should specifically do a Roth conversion. I'm just explaining the concept behind it. Now, when we do Roth conversions with some of our clients in our firm, we look for windows of opportunity when their tax bracket is lower, and then we want to capitalize. We want to capitalize on that marginal bracket. Now, a couple of limits that we're looking at is their marginal bracket, but then also their Medicare bracket, because again, keep in mind, Medicare looks back 2 years. And so if you're 63 and do a massive Roth IRA conversion, that counts against your ordinary income. So keep in mind, there's a lot of tax implications. I would recommend that you consult a qualified tax professional before considering, or even doing this Roth IRA conversion. But for some clients, it does make sense to do that. Of course, there's a lot of tax planning strategies that we don't have time to go through, but I just put a couple on your screen. Roth IRA contributions, conversions, timing tax deferred withdrawals, donor advised funds, life insurance, qualified charitable distributions, QCDs, health savings accounts, hybrid long-term care, and then reducing tax exposure for IRMA and then Social Security benefits. Okay. I see a couple of people chatting that they can't access the toolkit. If you fill that out, as I mentioned before, you will get an email. So check your email for the toolkit. That'll come in an email from me. Okay, the next one is the 3 questions that every pre-retiree needs to answer. Okay, so as we go, and these are actually the same questions I ask my clients when we work together. So the first one is, on the path to defining financial freedom, what does retirement look like to you? And if one of these speaks more to you, type it in the chat box. So what does retirement look like to you? Is it financial independence? Is it living comfortably in retirement? Is it a die with zero lifestyle? Is it, hey, on the day that I die, I want to spend the last bit of money that I have? Is it the freedom to travel or pursue hobbies, right? What does your retirement look like to you? And actually, you can just type it in the chat box. What does retirement look like to you? Is it a constant state of fear of the economy? Is it the ability to travel where you want? Maybe it's staying in your current home. Maybe it's buying a vacation home. Maybe it's riddled with high taxes because you didn't plan and you didn't have a plan for it, right? So what does retirement look like to you? Is it the opportunity to provide financially for children or for grandchildren? So yeah, some people are saying taking time off, living comfortably. So yeah, a lot of people are commenting, living comfortably seems to be a common theme. So there's definitely a lot of the reality is that everybody's what everybody thinks retirement looks like is going to be different for them. A lot of people are saying financial independence. Daryl said living the same when I was working. So yeah, pretty much a very similar lifestyle. Peter said I want to work on my hobbies. Manny said freedom to travel and pursue hobbies. Yeah, a lot of people are saying hobbies, and that's fantastic. If you've got hobbies, that's great. The second question is, how long will retirement last? Okay, and keep in mind, average 60-year-old American can expect to live another 30 years. Average life expectancy is expected to continue to increase. So retirement may last 25 plus, maybe 30 years, kind of depending on where you are, your life expectancy, your family history, right? Your hobbies, your passions, your interests. keep in mind how long retirement will last for you, okay? The third one is, when do you want to retire? So keep in mind, the earlier you retire, the shorter period of time that you have to accumulate funds and the longer those dollars have to last, okay? Also keep in mind, on the fixed timeline here, the Social Security isn't available until age 62. And Medicare eligibility doesn't begin until age 65. Okay, I'm liking a lot of these comments here. A lot of people are saying financial independence, freedom to travel, pursue hobbies, financial freedom, super yacht cruising in the Mediterranean. That sounds amazing. So that sounds fun. And so those are the three questions. I think it's important that you think through, what does retirement look like? How long is it going to last? And really just start thinking more through, what is important to you in retirement, okay? Okay, let's talk about the two product categories. So usually when I think about product categories inside of retirement planning, I usually think about them as principal protected or not principal protected, okay? And they're usually broken down between three different classes, right? So bank products, brokerage products, and life insurance products. Now, when people think safety, when people think FDIC insurance, we generally tend to think about checking, savings, CDs, money markets, things like that. When we think brokerage products on the far right side, we typically think about things that can go up in value and then down in value, right? Not principal protected. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, they have volatility associated with them. And then there's everything in the middle. That's life insurance. And there's a lot of confusion around life insurance because life insurance products, because some of them are principal protected and then some of them are not principal protected. And I'm not here to say that any product is good or bad. I would just say that you need to really understand the product that you're purchasing and make sure that you understand where it fits into your overall retirement plan. Again, I would never say there's a good or bad product, just a good or bad fit. And that you have to start thinking through, because this is your retirement savings, is this a good or bad product for my personal needs? And start evaluating products based on the need that you have, not necessarily just because I went to this presentation and they talked about this product and how it could work for me. Start thinking through, you need to start taking a little bit more ownership and really engineering your retirement through the products that you're using. Okay, now let's talk about your one ideal retirement, and then we'll finish it off with engineering your retirement blueprint. I see a comment here. The first link in the email worked for me. I haven't tried the rest yet. Yeah, so I'm not sure if some people are having issues there, but I think the links are working. So I think we checked them all. But yeah, if you get an email, if you get the email from me, those links have the slides inside of them. Okay. All right. So your one ideal retirement timeline. Now I'm specifically going to be talking about what I call your fixed timeline. Now, when I work with clients, I think about it in terms of two sets of timelines: your fixed timeline and then your flexible timeline. Your fixed timeline is what I'm going to go through today, and that's going to get you from age 50 to 75, which I think most people here are somewhere in that band. They're thinking about retirement planning in the next 10 to 15 years. Now, this is your fixed timeline. Your flexible timeline, which is going to be based on your specific, right? What's longevity in my family look like? How long do my parents live? Are certain things important to me, like paying off my house at a certain age, or is there a milestone that's important to me because my father passed away in his 50s, so I don't want to retire past 60, right? So you have to think about what's in your flexible timeline, but at least for the fixed timeline perspective, this is what I'm going to go through right now. So there's, I think it's 2, 4, 6, 10, 8, 10, 11. So there's 11 milestones on the path to retirement timeline. And these are the 11 that I'm going to go through now. So the first one is age 50. Okay, so now at age 50, there's what is called a catch-up contribution. So at age 50, you are eligible to make up catch-up contributions to your retirement accounts. There's a limit for 401ks, 403bs, 457s at $7,500 for 2024. In your IRA, the catch-up contribution is $1,000. Now, actually next year, so if I did this presentation next year, there's actually going to be something called a super catch-up contribution, which is going to be coming out next year. And then at age 50 is also when you're eligible for Social Security benefits as a disabled widow or widower. Okay, at age 55, you are eligible to make catch-up contributions to your HSA. Now, that's different than the catch-up contribution to a 401k or IRA. Now, the catch-up contribution for HSAs is only $1,000, but still, it's there. The other thing to keep in mind is there is a very unknown rule out there with the IRS that it's called the Rule of 55. You can just Google this, but what this allows you to do is at 55, you can take penalty-free withdrawals from a 401k if you leave your current job in the calendar year that you turn age 55 or later. So and why is this significant? A lot of people are thinking my 401k or IRA, I can't access it until 59 and a half. That is true, but with one caveat, and that's the Rule of 55, which is let's say you've been working at some XYZ company and you leave that company and you separate service in the year that you turn 55 or later, you can actually take money out of that retirement account without a penalty, as long as you turn 55 or older, without having to get until 59 and a half. So that is a very interesting note, that especially if you're thinking on retiring earlier than 59 and a half, this is something you might want to consider. Age 59 and a half. Now, of course, this is the traditional time that you can take money out of your 401k, out of your IRA without the 10% early distribution penalty. This is also the age that you can do what's called a non-hardship in-service withdrawal from your 401k. Most 401ks will allow you to do at age 59 and a half a non-hardship in-service withdrawal for any contributions that you've made to the 401k. At age 60, that's when you're eligible to claim Social Security benefits as a widow or widower. Now, when you would get it early, so it would be at a reduced rate. At age 62, that's when you're eligible to claim Social Security retirement benefits, again, early, at a reduced rate. And this is also when you're eligible to qualify for a reverse mortgage. Now, again, I want to mention 62, that's the earliest you can take Social Security, your own Social Security. At 64 and 9 months, this is the initial enrollment period for Medicare. So most people think 65 for Medicare, that's true, but 3 months prior, that's the initial enrollment period for Medicare. Age 65 is, of course, you're eligible for coverage under Medicare, assuming you got your application in time. You also want to think through, this is at the time when you're eligible for non-medical withdrawals from your HSA without penalty. So a lot of people have put money into an HSA, they've invested it, they've grown over time, and then they think, well, David, what if I need to use this money but for non-qualified medical expense? You can use it after age 65 without a penalty. If it's for a non-qualified medical expense, as long as you've turned 65 or older, you can use it to do whatever you want, and you won't get penalized. You'll just get taxed on that money. Okay. Now, keep in mind with Medicare and HSA, there's a 6-month look-back rule. So you don't want to contribute to your HSA 6 months prior to enrolling in Medicare. A lot of people miss that, so you don't want to get penalized. Okay, now, of course, your full retirement age, that's going to be the age at which you get what's called your PIA, your primary insurance amount. Now, most people are going to be somewhere between age 66 and 67. And of course, if you're born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is going to be 67. I think it's important for you to understand what your full retirement age is and what your benefit will be. And then at age 70, that's when the maximum Social Security benefit is reached. So this is the age when there's no benefit to delaying Social Security anymore, because that's the maximum that you're going to get paid out from Social Security. Now, there's a lot of confusion around when should I file for Social Security, right? The question is, the answer is it depends, right? So on this chart, as you can see, let's assume that your Social Security retirement age, your full retirement age benefit was 66. And that's when you would get 100% of what's called your PIA, your primary insurance amount. Well, what this chart is saying is if you took it early, let's say you took it at 62, you would get 75% of your full retirement age benefit. But if you took it later, like let's say at age 70, you would get what's called delayed retirement credits. So you can actually get 132% of your primary insurance amount. So keep in mind the decision on when to take Social Security really is a big factor in your overall retirement plan. Age 73, this is when your required minimum distribution age would start if you were born before 1960. For those of you born 1960 or later, your RMD age is going to be at 75. And again, this is traditionally a big influx of cash that will come from your 401ks and IRA. So keep in mind on your retirement timeline, understand where you are on your retirement timeline, and then what are those key milestones, because some of them have implications, right, around Medicare, around Social Security, around RMDs. It's very important, especially if you're trying to retire early or retire later than maybe 65 as an example. Okay, let's finish it off. We've got about 15 minutes left. We're going to finish it off with the engineering your retirement blueprint. Okay, and I don't know if I missed some questions. So hopefully, I think some people answered them in the chat box. So let's talk about engineering your retirement blueprint. So this is the retirement blueprint process that I take my own clients through. And we talk about 6 areas of retirement planning: liquidity planning, income planning, growth planning, healthcare and long-term care planning, tax planning, and then legacy planning. Munir said, how much is the RMD? It's actually a number that's based on your life expectancy and the amount of your IRA or 401k on December 31st of the prior year. So there's calculators out there. You can just Google, RMD calculator, and you can figure out what your RMD would be. So on these 6 steps here, liquidity planning is the first one. So any known expenses that you need in the next 5 years, that's the first part. So that's what I would recommend, having liquid typically in cash, CD, money market, really not invested for growth. This is really money that you would need pretty quick access to, in the next 5 years. So that's liquidity planning. And I'm going to go through these very quickly just for time. From an income planning perspective, now let's say, let me zoom out for a second here. Let's say that you have let's say that your Social Security is $4,000 a month as a benefit, and your expenses are only $3,000 a month. So that means that your income is more than your expenses, which means, let's say you had a portfolio of $1 million. You necessarily wouldn't need to take money out of your portfolio to pay for your monthly cash flow. Now, I realize that's not the scenario for most people. Most people will have a little bit of Social Security and their expenses will be more than, maybe pension and Social Security combined. So a lot of people will be looking to other asset classes to generate income in retirement. So if you need to generate income in retirement, this is where I'm going to introduce the 4 quadrants. Okay. Now, the top of the quadrant, this is for people that need flexibility. The bottom of the quadrant is for people that need commitment. Okay. The left side of the quadrant, that's for people that need safety. And then the right side of the quadrant, that's for people that need that are okay taking a probability with their retirement income. Okay. So when I think through each of these different quadrants, I look at different strategies to generate income in retirement. Okay. So with probability based and needs flexibility, that's quadrant 1. Generally speaking, we're looking to the market to generate income in retirement. For people in quadrant 2, that's safety-based and needs flexibility. That's generally speaking, we're going to do a time-based portfolio, a 3-phase portfolio. And I'm going to talk about each one of these in detail. And then the bottom left, that's for people that are just looking on that maybe they don't have any assets in retirement savings, and they're just looking at pensions or annuities and Social Security. Then the bottom right, that's the 3-bucket approach. Now, this is a purpose-based approach. So this is, hey, I want this money to be liquid. I need this money to generate income, and I need this money to be a muscle for growth. And that's a purpose-based approach, okay? Now, just off the top, I know we haven't talked much about each of these, but we are in a second. Which quadrant do you feel like you are leaning more towards? Quadrant 1, to generate income. Quadrant 2, safety-based and needs flexibility. Quadrant 3, safety-based and needs commitment, or quadrant 4, the 3-bucket approach, which is again more of a purpose-based approach. So the quadrant 1, that's more focused on the market to generate income. Quadrant 2, that's a time-based portfolio strategy. Quadrant 3, that's just focused on kind of sort of fixed income there. And then quadrant 4, that's probability-based and you need commitment. That's a purpose-driven approach. So yeah, let's see. We got a lot. Gene said 4. BB said 4. Gary said 4. Daryl said 4. A lot of 4s in here. Ed said 4. Mark said 4. A lot of 4s. Another Mark said 2. Peter said 2. So yeah, so interesting. Kind of spreading out between 2 and 4. I haven't seen any 1s yet, so that's interesting. A couple of 3s in there, a lot of 2s. There's Jim. There's the 1 there. Carolyn said 1. Yeah, so a lot of people kind of spread out. Seems to be more focused on 2 and 4 with a couple of 1s and 3s in there. So let's go through each one so you have an idea. And again, the context here is, hey, David, my income is not enough. My stable income from pension, Social Security, annuities, whatever, is not enough to generate income, my full income needs in retirement, my expenses. I need to generate more money from my portfolio. So how am I going to do that? So with the stock market approach, right, so that top right quadrant, quadrant 1, most people will institute something of what I would call a guardrail method, which is essentially, hey, David, my portfolio is $1 million today. And if it goes up above 1.5 million, my withdrawal rate is going to be 5%. And then if it goes below, we'll call it 750,000, my withdrawal rate is going to be 3%. But normally it'll be, 4%. So in that method, you have to maintain a dynamic, flexible spending pattern. So that's where that flexibility really comes in. And obviously you're taking a probability-based approach. So that's the guardrail method. We use, typically somewhere between 3 to 4% of a withdrawal rate. And then again, it can go up if your portfolio goes up, and it will go down if your portfolio goes down. Safety-based and needs flexibility. This is a time or 3-phased approach. So this is short-term, mid-term, long-term. So the way this works is essentially, client would say, hey, David, I've got, let's just call it $1 million or whatever. And so I'm going to put some of that money into a long-term growth portfolio. And then when that portfolio goes up, I will take some money off the top, put it into something more fixed, like a CD or a bond ladder or something like that. And then when those mature, I will put that into my current cash flow. Okay. That's a 3-phase portfolio. Again, there's different risks based on the strategy, but you're putting time between you and market volatility. Okay, the third one is a safety base that needs commitment. So this is stable income. You're really just focused on pensions, social securities, annuities. So these would be for people that really don't have a lot of retirement savings, which I gather most of you on the workshop today probably have at least a decent chunk of retirement savings. Then the bottom right here, this is a purpose-based approach. So you said, David, I need this much money to be liquid in the next 5 years. I need this money to just generate income in retirement. So part of your portfolio might just be focused on generating income, and then the other part of your portfolio might be invested differently because it's focused on growth into a different portfolio that's just generating income. So yeah, I think a lot of people have commented there. A lot of people in 2 and 4. That's kind of where the median is there, and then a couple in 1 and 3. Okay, moving on the retirement blueprint. Then we move to growth and investments. Now, of course, for everything that you invest, you want to determine what is the rate of return that you need for your goal, right? Is it income? Is it cash flow? Is it to generate cash flow in retirement? You might want to take on different risks for that rate of return. Is it for growth? Is it just to build up funds for healthcare or for inflation or for taxes down the road? Is it because of legacy? Is this for a legacy need that you want to leave behind something, right? So determine the rate of return that you need for the specific need or the goal. And then we want to take the least amount of risk in that portfolio for the desired result. Of course, from the investment selection perspective, you choose asset allocation, then you diversify inside of the asset allocation, and then you actually choose the underlying investments or portfolios inside of the asset classes. Now, of course, I'm a huge fan of diversification. So, just like with taxes, with investments as well, I think it's important to be diversified. Let me ask you a question. In 2018, what was the highest performing asset class? And I'll pause here for a second. In 2018, what was the highest performing asset class according to this chart? In 2018, what was the highest performing asset class? Any guesses here? You can look at 2018. Yes, exactly. Thanks, Bill. It was cash. So in 2018, cash was king. Now, if you look in 2019, cash was at the very, very bottom. It was only at 2.3% while U.S. equities were high. That's the importance of being diversified, having a diversified portfolio. We don't know necessarily in what year certain asset class will perform better or worse than in other years. That's why I'm a huge proponent of being diversified inside of your portfolio. Then we move to healthcare and long-term care. Of course, from a healthcare perspective, you want to understand your cash flow both before and after Medicare. And then, of course, understand the HSA and Medicare eligibility rules. Remember, you want to stop HSA contributions before 6 months prior to enrolling in Medicare. Of course, there's a lot of parts of Medicare. I'm not going to go through each one individually, but it's important that you understand the differences between Medicare Part A, Part B, Part C, and Part D. Again, you can go to Medicare.org and look at this information, but I just want to make sure you understand Medicare Part A is covered once you enroll in Social Security. Medicare Part B and D, that's where the IRMA surcharge comes in for Medicare income-related monthly adjustment amount. That's where the premium comes in. Long-term care. Now, long-term care is a separate issue. So 25% of retirees age 65 will face some expenditure of $50,000 or more in lifetime long-term care expenses. And then if you're a woman, according to the Society of Actuaries, if you're a woman, you need to be especially aware that the possible absence of a family caregiver and a longer life expectancy could make your long-term care costs twice as high or more. Now, on the right side of your screen, you'll see national averages. These are just averages across the nation, so it's not representative. Specifically, if you're in a high cost of living area, your long-term care costs might be extremely expensive. From a tax planning perspective, I mentioned this, there's so many tax planning strategies, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into each one of them, but you need to start thinking through from a tax perspective, how can you be more strategic in the tax planning strategies that you have available to you. And of course, a shout out for the IEEE Foundation. I did a workshop with them a couple months ago, and we talked about QCDs, we talked about donor advised funds, we talked about life insurance, charitable remainder trust. There's opportunities to be more tax efficient and to be generous and be charitable to your favorite institutions. And of course, Giving Day is coming up on Tuesday, so definitely keep IEEE Foundation in mind as your donations, as part of your donation. And then finally, legacy plan, right? What's important to you on the legacy plan? Okay, yeah, thank you. Giving Tuesday is coming up. Thank you for putting that link in the chat box. So, what is your legacy plan, and will your values be reflected in the way that you've handled your legacy? So, is it a will-based estate plan? Is it a trust-based estate plan? Is it having a durable power of attorney, medical power of attorney, appointment of guardians, beneficiary designations, charitable giving? Like, what is important to you, and making sure that not only are your valuables being protected, but your values are being passed to the next generation. And so that is the retirement blueprint process on the engineering your retirement. So just to recap here, I only have a few minutes left. To recap, we talked about the 5 greatest retirement risks. We talked about the 4 tax buckets. We talked about the 3 questions every retiree needs to answer, the 2 product categories, your 1 ideal retirement, and then the engineering your retirement blueprint process. And so with that, I just want to say thank you to IEEE USA and Jonathan and Kayla for the opportunity again to share information about how to engineer your retirement, a step-by-step guide to preparing for your retirement transition.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, David. That was really comprehensive. There's a lot of information. I think everyone will have to take that back, mull it over a bit. Folks, unfortunately, we are out of time, but if you do have any questions, we have included David's contact information, which you can either access through the link that I've provided on screen, or you can also go to his LinkedIn page, which you can access through his Engineering Your Retirement Toolkit. Once you provide your information, your name, your email, it'll take you directly to that. Once you get the email as well, as David mentioned, it'll include a list of resources that you can access. David, I did see that some of our webinar viewers have stated that the slides provided in the link only go up to slide 80. Will you is that intentional, or are they able to access the rest of the slides in the other resources?
Okay, it might have been an error. I can check the link, and then if there's an issue, I can resend it out to anyone that's signed up. Absolutely.
All right, fantastic, thanks.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks, if you do have any questions for David, feel free to reach out to him directly for a consultation as well. But David, thank you so much for providing your expert insight on how we can go about navigating the crucial years leading up to retirement. It was great having you today.
Thank you.
And thank you to our audience for your great questions as well. A few announcements before we close things off today. First off, we're less than 2 weeks from our IEEE USA iWork Aerospace and Defense Conference in Huntsville, Alabama. This event offers a chance to meet potential partners from the U.S. federal agencies and you can learn how to contribute to the Alabama and Southeast innovation ecosystem. It's an opportunity you definitely don't want to miss, so register as soon as possible. Next, I'd like to inform everyone of the upcoming deadline to apply for the IEEE USA 2025-2026 Government Fellowships Program. If you're passionate about making a difference in public policy, this is your chance to contribute to critical legislative and regulatory processes by serving as an advisor to legislators in Washington, D.C. Don't miss this incredible opportunity to influence technology policy and gain invaluable experience in government service. The deadline to apply for the 2025-2026 fellowship cycle is December 9. One moment as I add that link to the stream. And finally, a message from our sponsor, the IEEE Member Group Insurance Program, powered by AMBA. AMBA offers tailored insurance solutions for IEEE members, including health, life, and disability coverage. Visit their website to explore the benefits and options available to you. If you enjoyed the content presented in today's webinar, be sure to check out our extensive catalog of other presentations and publications, including David Sandhu's previous webinar, Engineering Your Wealth, available on demand on our website for your viewing pleasure. If you haven't yet, please be sure to like and subscribe to our social media channels, and don't forget to check back daily for updates on upcoming events. Have a great day, everyone.
Your IEEE membership means access to insurance products featuring exclusive group rates, flexible benefit options, and portable coverage that stays with you throughout your career. Engineered to help protect your loved ones and your financial security. For more information, go to IEEEinsurance.com.